It's not enough to just know who your customer segment is. It's also important to know if you're focusing on the right customer. Today, we're going to talk about how you can know that. So you might be talking to a bunch of customers that you think fit your customer segment, and you're not really getting the insights that you need from them. And that might be because you're not talking to the right customer in that customer segment. You have to know where they are on their life cycle journey and where you are as a product or service. And the combination of the two is what we're going to talk about today. So this is the technology adoption life cycle. And what it does is it demonstrates the likelihood of different groups of consumers to adopt your product or service right at the onset. So this is when they first hear about it. And there are 5 groups that we're going to talk about. Now, innovators are the people that are willing and ready to try any new thing. They're usually the risk takers, and they don't really necessarily want your thing fully fleshed out because they want to be first and they want the opportunity to give you feedback. They're great, but oftentimes they're not necessarily the best because you don't know if they like your product or service or if they're just trying it because it's new. Now, early adopters is who we want to be talking to. Early adopters are the people that are waiting to kind of see if it's tested and true, and they're also the people that are willing to try something if it's a little bit more proven, but once they like it, are going to be your strongest advocates when trying to disseminate the experience and how it is for customers to use your product. Now, beyond that, you're getting into the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. Now, the early majority and the late majority are going to account for the most substantial group of users you might have in the long run. But at the beginning, if you're talking to these people, chances are they're not going to be as excited about what you're offering, and they won't really give you good insight into how to get that first customer. They're more of your second and third customer. And then, of course, there's laggards who are just so far removed from the problem that you're trying to solve for that if you're talking to them, they're going to act as if you're not building something of value, which is not necessarily true. Now, how do you focus on an early adopter? Well, you first have to figure out how to identify them. So where you want to start is understanding what your problem space is. So what exactly are you solving for? Now, once you've set that up, then it's important to ask yourself a series of questions. Are the people that you're talking to, do they have that problem in the first place? So that's step 1. Once you assess if they've had the problem, then you also have to check, are they even aware that they have the problem? Because sometimes customers have no clue that this is a problem that they face. And if they are aware, the third and most important question is, are they actively trying to solve that problem for themselves? If so, that's going to be your early adopter, someone who's trying something new and is ready for you to present a better alternative. So let's take a look at an example. So I'm going to take Airbnb. And in this case, I'm going to focus on one of their earlier problem statements, which is, how can a business traveler find a cheap hotel room in a popular city? Now, where we're going to start with is identifying who would the laggards be in this case. So remember our 3 questions. Do they have the problem? Are they aware they have the problem? And are they actively trying to find a solution? So in this case, a laggard might look like someone that their company pays for all their hotel travel, so they don't really care about finding a cheap hotel room. They're willing to pay whatever for that hotel. So if we talk to people like that, they're not going to really see the value in house sharing for their business or for their company. So let's move on to who we think are the late majority. So the late majority are people who do have this problem, but they're not aware, and they're not really actively trying to find a solution because they're not aware. And so because of that, let's try and summarize who we think that might be. So I've taken a stab and I've said that people that are charging their hotel rooms to their personal are not really the people that we're looking for. Yes, they're going on business travel, and yes, it's expensive and their company won't cover it, but instead of thinking through like, hey, how do I solve this problem and find cheaper hotels, they just go ahead and charge it to their personal. So they don't really see it as a problem because they're in a position where they can take an alternative action. So, okay, late majority. They'd probably benefit, but we're not going to focus on them. So now let's look at who our early majority is. So our early majority are the people that have the problem, and they're actually aware that they have the problem, but they're not doing anything to solve it. So in this case, these are people that skip business travel altogether because they can't find cheap alternatives. They're not trying to find cheap alternatives, but they're really just kind of giving up and saying, hey, it's too expensive, I'm not going to go. Now, these people would definitely benefit from the Airbnb solution, but because they're not actively trying to solve the problem for themselves and they're happy doing what they're doing now, we don't want to focus on them. So now let's try and understand who is our early adopter. So these are the people that we want to talk to, we want to interview, we want to learn more about, and we want to help them solve the problem better than they're solving it today. So again, we have people that have the problem. They know they have the problem, but this time they are actively trying to find a solution. And so this looks like people that are going on forums and other sites to try and engage with people that might be open to sharing a room. Now, it seems extreme, but people that are prepared and willing to take extreme measures by other people's account are most likely going to be the ones that subscribe to using your product or service. And so this is the group that we want to focus on. So let's take a look now at what it might look like for us to focus on this customer. Now, if we talk to them over the laggards that we identified, chances are we're going to get better insights. We're going to understand better the actions that they're taking that we might be able to solve for. We'll get a better sense of their pains and their gains as a customer. And ultimately, we'll have better insights to build out an MVP product set that meets their needs. So focusing on early adopters is the best way to talk to the right people at the beginning of your startup journey. They're the segment that's going to give you the best insight and also be the first people to use your product and service when you launch. Now, if you can't find early adopters, then it's probably not the right time for you to enter into the market. So maybe pivot and try to understand who an early adopter might be and how you might be able to meet their needs.